This is June 29th, 2022, beautiful city of Portland.
Yes.
In the state of Oregon. My name is Jong-Woo Han. I am the president of Korean War Legacy Foundation, which has more than 1,500 of Korean War veterans interviewed, not only from the United States, but also from other 21 countries that participate in the Korean War.
Yes.
We are doing this to preserve your memory, first of all, because it's been already more than 70 years ago.
Yes, it was.
And we want to honor your service and sacrifice.
Thank you.
But most importantly, the Korean War has been known as forgotten war, and we want to challenge that. We want to correct that. So this interview will be edited and metadated and analyzed by the teachers, and the group of teachers will use this interview when they're talking about the Korean War in the classroom.
Okay.
So the curriculum book that I gave you
Yes.
is the first product of that. It was published in the United States in 2019 by the biggest social studies teachers association, which is National Council for Social Studies.
Good.
And then we also commissioned Historical Society in England.
Good.
And I went to England and did an interview of British soldiers so that they make their own curriculum book for their own teachers.
All right.
And now in the process of finishing up the publication in Canada, and we are going to go to other, how many countries? 19 countries.
19 more.
Yeah, 19 more to go, so it's a long way.
Yeah, nice trip.
Yeah. But I believe that that's the best way to
Yes.
keep your legacy and transfer the legacy to our younger generations about the place and importance of the Korean War in world history.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So it's my great honor and pleasure to meet you, and thank you for receiving us in your beautiful home.
Thank you so much. Our
Please-
pleasure.
Please introduce yourself. What is your name?
My name is Don Mason, D-O-N. Mason is M-A-S-O-N.
And you have a middle name?
I have a middle name, Lee,
Lee.
L-E-E.
Thank you, sir. And what is your birthday?
7 July 1929.
29.
29.
And July 19th, so your birthday is coming up.
Yeah, like a month, or about half a month.
So that makes you, how old are you now?
About 92.
93 then.
I'll be 93 in July.
Well, I want to say 92.
92. I am
Right?
90, I'm 92 now.
Yes. My goodness, you don't have any wrinkle in your forehead.
Am I supposed to?
I thought so.
It came from good genes, I guess.
Good gene, right?
Yeah,
Okay. Wow, you're looking good, sir. And where were you born?
I was born in Whittier, California.
Where?
Whittier, California.
Could you spell it?
W-H-I-T-T-I-E-R.
W-H-I-T-T-I-E-R,
I-T-T-I-E-R.
California.
Yeah.
Please tell us about your family background when you were growing up, your parents and your siblings.
I had no siblings. I was only child,
Only child.
so I got lots of care. My mother and my grandparents raised me pretty much because my mother and dad were divorced when I was a young child. I can't give you what date, but they were divorced, and I lived with my mother who raised me, along with my grandparents who lived close enough that I spent a lot of time with my grandparents.
That's good. That's
That
good.
was a good thing.
Yeah.
That was good.
And tell me about your educational background, the school you went through, and especially the high school name and the year that you graduated.
Okay, my graduation or my schooling was I went through kindergarten in Whittier, and grade school through Whittier, and then I went to Whittier Union High School,
Hmm?
and I graduated from there in 1948.
1948. And this is a question that I'm asking to
Okay.
everybody.
That's fine.
Did you learn anything about Korea in your education, including high school?
No,
Nothing?
nothing.
You didn't know where Korea was?
No,
You didn't learn anything about Korea in geography class?
no. That's what I recall.
Oh, good to know.
It's good to know because I'm anxious to find out if you're going to get this legacy into our high schools or schools system.
Yes.
for history.
Yep. That's why we are publishing those curriculum books.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see if we get that far.
And after graduation, what did you do?
After graduation, I joined a reserve unit in January 1948,
Mm-hmm.
and I was in the reserve,
You mean Marine Corps?
Marine Corps Reserve Unit. The station was located in Whittier. I went to 2 years of junior college. That may be about 1950. And
What college was
it
it?
was Fullerton Junior College. It was in Fullerton, California. It's a few miles away from Whittier.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent a couple of years there, mostly because I was on the swim team and I liked to swim, and they had a good swimming team. But in that process, I skied also, and I broke my leg, so I couldn't swim. So I filled up during the time there, and about that same time they called our unit up to go to Korea. And that's when I started learning about Korea.
Mm-hmm. So where did you get the basic military training?
Most of my training was in summer camps, and we had weekly meetings with the reserve units. And then I went to 2 weeks of summer camp every year for 2 years.
But after you were recalled, did you get any basic training?
Oh, when we were called up in 1950, we went immediately to Camp Pendleton,
Mm-hmm.
and were put into the regular units that were being filled. After the Second World War, most of the military was pretty well streamlined, and they took a lot of people out of it. So they didn't have full units.
Mm-hmm.
So we were put into units that were deficient in personnel. I had the howitzer, the 105 howitzers. And that's what I went to.
You didn't have any problem with your leg that you?
No, I haven't had any problem. It was not a serious break, and after I went back for a month and so on, went back to normal.
What do they tell you about the Korean War at the time?
Well, what we learned was pretty much what we heard in the newspapers, that the North Koreans had invaded the South, and we had sent troops over there early on in the war to assist that military or army part that was there. I guess they had army troops in Korea at the time, and they weren't doing too well as far as with holding back the North Koreans. So they sent a regiment of Marines in Korea to assist or to help them protect as much as they could, I guess. That group, the first regiments that went down there in the lower part of Korea, the Pusan area. And when we landed, we went from...
Before
okay.
you go into
We're
that.
too far. Okay.
So you were 21 years old at the time, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And you didn't know much about Korea, and you are about to leave to a country that was in a war.
That's correct.
What were you thinking? I mean, were you scared?
Not
Were you
particularly.
hesitant?
A little hesitant. I didn't know. Most of our unit, or the biggest part of our unit, was Second World War people who had been in the Second World War. So my training came from their knowledge, actually, and whatever else I picked up along the way. But we didn't know much about Korea. I've taken over before a number of times from Japan and China. So they were mixed. They were a mixed race, kind of, because they had so much other influences from China and Japan. I wasn't particularly scared. I was looking for a new adventure. I guess I had one. And we spent a lot of time on board ship, and I told one of the other people I talked to about my time on kind of fun, because I got acquainted with holding his money for him, because he always come back to the bunks at night, and either lots of money or none at all. He'd come back and want more so he could keep playing. But we had a good trip over there, and we ran into the tail end of a typhoon where we came into Kobe, Japan, where we were stationed for probably a month, maybe. And,
Month?
probably, or maybe not a month. I'm not sure. Probably how much time we were there. We spent what was part of the landing in Japan during the Second World War. So he took me out a couple of different evenings. We weren't supposed to be out, but we were out anyway, to a couple of places that he knew about that were really, we had some great food in Japan. That's stuff I'd never eaten before, but it was just great. And the family were outstanding, just very, very friendly. But we loaded our landing crafts and,
But before,
okay,
before,
I'll get there.
where did you leave for Korea from the United
Oh,
States?
San Diego.
And when was it?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not sure what the date was, but we left from San Diego. We boarded our troop ships there.
Do you remember month? June? July?
Well, we landed in September, so it probably was
August?
probably July or August
And you arrived where in Korea?
in Kobe. Oh, in Korea. We didn't arrive there. We arrived in Japan to begin with.
Right?
And then we went from Japan, we went to Incheon.
Incheon. But what was your unit? At
And my unit was this Fox Battery.
Fox Battery,
Fox Battery, 2nd Battalion, 11th Marines.
2nd Battalion.
11th Marines,
Hmm.
1st Marine Division.
And what was your specialty? Rifleman?
My MOS was 0811, which was artillery.
Artillery.
Yes.
So tell me about Incheon. Well, you were part of Incheon landing
Yes.
team?
Yes.
Yes. So did you hear anything about you going to do amphibious landing in Incheon when you left from Sasebo to Incheon?
We just knew that there was a very high tide. We were in an LST, which is a landing craft that has doors that open and a ramp goes down. We were on ducks with our guns, and we knew that the very high tide was very critical for those to land. And we lost one that I know of, maybe two, making that they had to go into the ocean. That tide was going one way and they were going the other, and it tipped them over. We lost one of our guns there. But that was the only critical place called Womido.
Wolmido.
It's now the airport.
Yes.
I was really surprised because I went back particularly from our visit to see Womido or going around. But it wasn't there. We had a very successful landing. We weren't under any heavy fire. We had lots of fire at night before we landed. We had virtually no fire when we landed. The island was vacated because they'd already been and taken care of that part. Because artillery usually goes in later after they've secured the beaches. And we landed there. We were probably there a day or two, maybe, if less, probably even less. And we got our guns hooked to our vehicles and came across the causeway into Incheon.
But were there any resistance from the North Korean side?
Well, well, there was, but we weren't there during that resistance because we were, like I said, they usually bring the artillery in after the initial landing because they need that artillery to pave a way for them to get where they're going. And we didn't set up our guns there because we were unloading and getting ready to move out and get our ammunition packed up and everything. Then when we did go, we went into Seoul or into Incheon, and it was already secured. And,
Already secured?
yeah.
So you were not at the front line of
No.
the first amphibious landing?
No, because the infantry goes in first.
Infantry.
Yeah.
So because you are artillery, that you are in the reward area.
Yes.
Yeah. And Don, please please share your first image of Korea that you saw. You told me that you didn't learn anything about Korea, you didn't know anything about Korea.
No.
You landed there in a very historic amphibious landing, which was very successful.
Yes, it was.
And you saw Incheon and you went up to Seoul.
Yes.
How was it? And can you give us a little bit of detailed description of the scene and the people or housing or buildings like that?
My impressions were surprising, only in the fact that there's so much destruction. The Navy did a good job at tearing them up the night before, and I was surprised about the housing, how primitive it was, and it was all like mud huts and roofs that were made of straw and those kind of things. Thatch roofs.
Yeah.
I was really surprised at that. My biggest surprise was the amount of dead people that were lining the roads when we went into Seoul.
Oh, you were able to see those?
Well, well, we had to stop from time to time, and so we'd stop when they'd stop, and we'd get off the truck because we were interested. At least I was interested in knowing what was going on. I'd like to know where I'm going, and I had a chance to see some of the dwellings there that were destroyed, but there was lots of people who were deceased in all those villages that we went through between Incheon and Seoul. That's why I took that picture of that little girl, because she was all by herself alongside the road when we stopped, and we were giving them food. The people who were there, we were trying to feed because they were hungry. We had sea rations, and there was some of the stuff we didn't like anyway, and so we had extra, and we'd give that to the kids. Particularly, we had chocolate bars, and because most of those sea rations were all World War II things. And they'd been sitting around in some warehouse for several years, and they weren't all that good.
I'm looking at that little girl that you took picture of, and she looks like crying.
Yes, she was crying.
And she was alone.
All by herself.
All by herself.
We'd stopped there, and she was sitting alongside the road, and we all got off the truck, and I went over and said, I got her some candy, which she didn't have, and
Did you have a camera at the time?
yes, I took most of my pictures. Like I said, told Gary, that I have lots of them. I can't find them. I think we have a place down at the coast here, and I think they're downstairs in the basement.
Don, I want you to dig that basement and find the pictures and share it with me, because
I've got lots of negatives that I have here, but I can't get anybody. We don't do negatives anymore like we used to do.
I'll do it for you, and I'll get it back to you.
Okay, I've got a whole bunch of them. You're more than welcome to them. I have, like I said, I think the pictures are over in Tillamook, but I do have a lot of the negatives.
Excellent. You know, if you look at the curriculum book that I gave you, you can find North Korean notes, the money, and there are more than 1,500 historical artifacts that I have collected and scanned it and put it on the website so that teachers can use it.
Oh, sure, it's great. Okay.
So let's share it together, okay?
I have, a couple of them you'll find in there, I hope anyways. Further on in the war, we were doing what we call normal barrages at night, and we would shoot all night long, and I took a picture of all the brass that we shot.
So you saw Seoul for the first time,
Yes.
right? That was late September or early October?
We landed the 15th, so it was between late September and 1st of October. We set up our guns when we got to Seoul. We set up in one of the palace grounds. I'm not sure.
At the palace ground?
Yes. I'm not sure which one, because we asked our tour guide when we were there 3 or 4 years ago that when I just told you, and wanted to know if this is the palace grounds we were set up in, because it's all restored now. When we got there, it was there were trenches all over the place where the army had been and vacated. So we were in that portion of it. But we set up inside those grounds, and I set up our guns there.
Did you take that picture with the background of palace?
Perhaps there may be one in there. There was no North Koreans in there, and the North-South Koreans were just starting to come of wherever they were. But we went on a tour just close to the palace grounds to a storehouse where they had stored a lot of their precious things. It was open. I don't know who opened it, but it was open. So we went in there and looked around, and there was all kinds of artwork and stuff that they had put in there.
Did you go back to Korea after you know?
Yeah, my wife and I went back.
When?
About 3 or 4 years ago. When was it?
2018?
About,
Yeah, I can't remember what year it was. It was about 3 years ago, I think.
I have,
2018 or 19,
Yeah,
let's say
18
that.
or 19.
But
No, it wasn't. I don't think it was as late as 19. I think it was probably 18.
18.
Yeah.
And now you saw Korea 2 times.
Yes.
One in
I
1950
was totally amazed.
and 2018.
Yes.
Compare it, please.
Oh,
Detail.
when we saw Seoul, we saw it from trucks actually, and we didn't have a chance to get down because we were going through Seoul. That's where our troops were, and we went to Gimpo Airport and set up, and we went into Seoul, and for the most part, Seoul was pretty much destroyed from our viewpoint. Most of the buildings were knocked down. They were all no high-level buildings. They were all huts and very primitive things. And it was pretty much that way all the way through. All the areas that we went through, and I helped do that, unfortunately, and I apologize. But
2019.
19, was it that late?
September 22nd to 27th.
Okay.
It's my bookkeeper.
Yeah. And so,
But what my impressions were, because we stayed in one of the hotels in downtown
you mean in 2019?
19.
Yeah.
From our window, I could see pretty much a lot of the city from that part. We were looking at that tall hill. There's a big tall hill. It's got the
Yeah.
television itself on it. And below us, you could see all these smaller buildings. The thing that amazed me was that you go down the main street and there's all these brand new buildings. You go off 2 or 3 blocks and they look like pretty much the way it was 50 years ago or 70 years ago. I had a chance to go out of the hotel and I walked around some of those buildings. They're pretty much the same as it always was, which really amazed me. They've built up the center of the core, but they haven't gone out into the outlying areas and done the same thing. But I'm assuming that they all have running water now and all the amenities of
Dawn, here is your reminder.
don't worry about
Please
her.
take medication.
She'll do it one more time.
Go
But
ahead.
Anyway, I was amazed that they'd
Dawn,
done so
here is your
well.
reminder. Pills take medication.
How well they've rebuilt and how rapidly they've rebuilt. I mean, it's a real metropolis. We had so much fun there. It was just amazing how many, I mean, nothing was there when I was there. We had one bridge, or 2 bridges. Now
One.
One. And now the bridges everywhere going across the river. And we had a great tour guide that took us around on the buses. And we were told, I just kind of like I'd see things and have my mouth open. Wow, that is a huge, big building.
When you left Korea from the war, did you ever imagine that Korea would become like this today?
No, because we did a job on their facilities. As far as the war was concerned, I didn't think it'd ever come back to anything like I saw.
That's amazing.
It is. We left from Hamnung, and that town was pretty well destroyed too. But back we blew it up, I think, and we left. But I never had any idea that Korea had developed that way.
Mm-hmm. Do you know the rank of Korean economy now in the world?
In the world, no, I don't. I don't
It's the number 10.
really. They well deserve it.
But that was
Well,
possible because you were there.
Well, yeah, well, perhaps. But we didn't leave it very much, I'll tell you. And I again apologize.
Yeah. From Seoul, how long did you stay there in Seoul?
We were in Seoul, then we went north for a while until they decided they wanted to go into North Korea. They weren't doing too well there, so I thought they'd go to. Somebody made some decisions to go around and go into Hamnung. But we were there probably until November-ish,
Mm-hmm.
because we made that trip from Seoul or from Incheon or whatever the port was. I don't even remember the port. We were out of.
Wonsan or Hungnam? Wonsan?
Well, I don't think we left from there. I think we left at a deep water port because we went. We must have gone south to get on those ships to go around. Cause we went. We went. They were all manned by Japanese shippers.
Did you went down to Gunsan?
We must have gone south out of Seoul to another port, and then went around because.
Yes.
Like I said, it's probably late October, 1st to mid-November to Hamnung, and then we from Hamnung we immediately put our guns on the railroad and went to Wonsan.
Wonsan. So you arrived in Hungnam, and then you went down to Wonsan.
Wonsan.
And from there, where did you go?
We were there for about a week.
Uh-huh.
Some of our units down there were ambushed at night, and when we got there, we were there to help neutralize that area. We were probably there a week, and we went back to Wonsan or Hamnung.
Uh-huh.
Then we loaded up again in our trucks and went up to Chosin Reservoir.
Wow.
And we were there for Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Thanksgiving
And Christmas.
and Christmas. So tell me about it. When you went up to Chosin Field, Jangjin Reservoir,
Yes.
when was it? December?
Well, it was in November because we had Thanksgiving meal there
There.
when we were up there, and then we had Christmas in December. So it was from November to Christmas. We were there at the reservoir.
At the reservoir. So when you arrived at the reservoir, were there any Chinese there?
No, not that I know of. We were at the headquarters for General Fuller was commanding officer, and he was there with. We were
Fuller.
Fuller.
Yeah, Chester Fuller.
Yeah. And we were there guarding the ammunition dump and whatever else was out there. But we were on the side road off the main road in that area, and there were no Chinese there. I'm going to say probably between Christmas and New Year, Christmas and Thanksgiving.
So by the end of the December, you began to see the Chinese
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
So you were in the artillery, right?
Yes.
So you were in the little bit rear war area.
Yeah.
Please describe the battle scene there.
Well-
You were not able to see the Chinese in your eye?
No.
No.
We got hit 2 or 3 times at night by Chinese, assuming they were Chinese, in our area.
When did you begin to fire the artillery?
Colder for us because we weren't prepared for that. We didn't come prepared for winter fighting. They issued us boots, they issued heavy overcoats, and they gave us down sleeping bags. But we weren't ready for cold because we didn't have any of the cold weather gear that was necessary to fight that kind of war. We were very cold. That's a good example of our gear.
You didn't take this picture, right?
No, I did not take that
So
picture.
I think it's by James Duncan.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who took it. I think it is James Duncan.
Mm-hmm.
But that's an example of how cold it was.
Yeah.
It was bitter cold, and it was even colder when we started coming out because we were exposed more. We had tents where we were in our compound. We had heaters inside those tents which we could get into, keep it a little warmer. But food was frozen by the time we got it at the chow line to get it back to tent. You ever eat cold frozen turkey?
Yeah, that's what's making the promise that you're going to have a turkey, but we'll have a Christmas dinner home back. Right?
Yeah, right. MacArthur was very ambitious.
Yeah.
He's not our best friend.
Not best friend for Marine.
No, I don't know.
You are too political.
No, I'm not. Just factual.
So, did you hear about what's going on in the far front line where that the Marines had to kill this Chinese 300,000?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What did you hear from
Well,
them?
we heard that they were having problems up at the reservoir, and they were getting attacked all the time, and they were having trouble with getting food in and wounded out. And we heard all that, and then we'd see trucks coming down or ambulances coming down the road with dead or wounded infantry people. Yeah, we heard all the firing at night and what was going on north of us.
Did you get any artillery bombing from China?
No.
Chinese? No. Wow, that was very fortunate.
Well, yeah, we felt very fortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know they did up further north of us. They split up. The 2nd Battalion had four gun batteries, I think. We were the Fox battery, and there was Dog Easy and Fox. And they took Fox was my gun battalion, and we stayed at the rear. Dog and Easy were up on the front line, and they were having trouble. So we kept pretty close contact with them because we were assisting them.
Did you think that you were going to survive that war at the time?
A couple of times I didn't. Maybe 3.
Where were you sleeping there?
We were in tents.
You had a tent.
We had tents, and we had stoves in them, so we could get warm at night or when we were not on duty. But we were on duty and we were outside.
Can you give us some example of how cold that was at the time? Kind of example where the students can...
Well, I don't know that I can. To a student, put their hand in their own refrigerator freezer for about an hour and a half and see how cold it is. I mean, that's about the temperature it was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was freezing all the time. We had, and besides being cold, we had snow to deal with, and one night we got hit with a bunch of guys out there, and I don't know who they were, but anyway, we had to go out and get in our foxholes, and I got into a foxhole that was dug by the Chinese. It was a great foxhole, but it was just bitter cold.
Mm. Did you have enough food to eat?
Yes.
Sea ration?
Sea rations.
Yeah.
But they did bring in, like I said, turkey dinner for Thanksgiving and Christmas, so they did take care of us there. I like to cook, so when we got back off the line, I used to go over and help cook at the cook shack. It was cold enough there even that we had eggs that were frozen. And it was difficult to fry an egg that's frozen. So we cracked them and lay them on the stove, and pretty soon it melted enough so they could get the shell off, and then they'd start to cook, which is really amazing to me because I never saw a frozen egg before. But we finally got them cooking and got food for them.
Maybe you can develop new food item.
I
Frozen
don't
egg.
think anybody wants to eat frozen eggs. Not fresh eggs, because they were fresh eggs, and they brought those in. They froze as soon as they got there. So,
Okay. So when did you begin to withdraw from there?
oh,
Was it after Christmas or
Yes.
before Christmas?
after Christmas.
Yeah.
But I can't tell you that. Sometime between there and the first of the year.
So is about 26 or 27, right?
Yeah, it was after Christmas. Yeah, it was something like between that and the first of the year, sometime in there.
And you have that hat, 1st Marine Division, with the badge in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is that?
Oh, this one over here is my rank. I was a gunnery sergeant.
Yeah.
The other one is from the chosen few.
What do you call that?
Uh,
Goldori Star.
it's a coterie star.
So from Godori, where did you go?
We came down. We left. Yeah, we left there and went down to Hamnung, and were there for probably a week, maybe a little longer.
Yeah. But on the way from Udamni through Godori and then Hungnam, it wasn't that easy, right?
No, it was not.
Tell me about it. Were there any flank attack from Chinese?
Yes, we got flanked, and we had one of the foreign governments were protecting our flanks. I can't remember. I think they were Greek, maybe.
Greek, yes, Greek.
Greek fighters were out there running down the side of the road,
Hmm.
or I wasn't running. They were fighting down the side of the road. And when we went by or started by, I mean, we had to stop because they. But we weren't really involved so much as they were concerned about getting out, because there was infantry and planes out there protecting our flanks, and they could shoot anything out there to kill us if they wanted to. I suppose if they were ready for it. But it was a dangerous road. Yeah, there was a lot of, like I said, we picked up several for dead Marines that we found alongside the road that hadn't been taken care of before, and there were Chinese as well out there, which didn't bother us too much, but we tried to find any of the Marines that might have been there or anybody else that was on our side.
Were there many North Korean refugees getting along with you guys?
We didn't see any refugees with us. We did, after we got into town, we did see lots of them coming. During that process, I don't know where they were, but when they started loading ship to leave, there were a lot of refugees. A lot of refugees that we got out of there.
I just had a wonderful interview with the third engineer of the Meredith Victory,
The ship,
cargo ship
yeah.
that carried 14,000 North Korean refugees.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, you
I'm
saw
sure.
that? Did you
Yeah,
see
we
that?
were watching. Yeah, we watched them load because we were loading at the same time.
Huh.
Because our guns are not light, are easy to move around, so it takes us a while to get loaded. But during that period of time when we were there with our guns, they were loading ships, just ship after ship of refugees.
What were you thinking, looking at those people, trying to...
Tragedy. All that destruction we caused. Because you think about, we were maybe not on the front line, but you think about when you load one of those shells, howitzer, and I don't know where it went, but if it went there, there was some reason to go there, and there were probably people involved in it. I have often thought about it. How many people that we killed that we don't even know about? And the destruction that causes by one of those things, they're immense. We had a chance, it was kind of a break time when after we got out of the north, to go do some practicing. And a couple of things we didn't have to use, fortunately, was a canister shell, which is loaded with nothing but buckshot, about this big around. And we practiced with that a couple of different times in case we needed it. And those things are just like a giant shotgun. They go out and it spreads like 100 yards of nothing but gunshot. And we were glad we didn't have to use them because they're very destructive and a real killing machine.
So in the ship, where did you go from there? Hungnam to Busan?
Yes,
And
I guess it was Busan. Yeah, I think it was Busan, yeah.
and then from Busan, did you go back to
We went back to
state?
Kobe. We went back to Kobe.
Kobe.
Uh,
So your mission was done there.
yes.
That's
I was
good.
I was last of the Incheon draft. We went to South Korea and were there, stationed there while they were fighting the parallel.
Yeah.
And we were back there in a rest area. And we were there for, I don't know, quite a while, but they started rotating all those people who made the landing out. And they were taking pieces at a time coming out. And I thought I'd never get out of there. But I was the last of the Incheon people, what they call the last of the Incheon draft. They came out of there.
So you came out of Hungnam, arrived in Busan, and you didn't go anywhere but went to Japan
No, when we first came out of there, we went back up north again,
again.
because they were still fighting for the parallel.
Where were you?
Well, I don't know, somewhere south of the 38th parallel.
You don't remember any?
I don't particularly
location?
know because we were never off base. We just were out there in the field with
Yeah.
our guns.
Was it in the west or east side?
We were on the right-hand side.
Huh?
Right-hand side, that would be west.
Right hand side, east.
Oh, that okay. Right-hand side would be east.
Yeah. Any name that like a iron triangle?
No, that's what they were fighting above us. We were behind that.
Behind it, but along the same sort of.
Same quadrant, of
Yeah.
where they were.
Okay.
But we weren't involved in it. We had our guns set up there, and there was 155s, a bigger howitzer set up there. But we weren't fighting it. We were there for backup, apparently,
Right.
and a rest area because we just come off the hill and we were there, and just getting recouped and refitted and new clothes and whatever else we needed.
Wow, you were in Incheon Landing, you were in Chosen Few,
Yeah.
and then you went back up to the 38 parallel.
Oh, we weren't fighting there though. We were there, but we weren't fighting it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when did you leave Korea?
I don't know, whenever the last of the Incheon draft was. I could probably find it somewhere and give you the dates on it, but I can't do that right
How
now.
about month?
Oh, I came back probably,
May
I'm going to say May or June, perhaps. I think
and 51.
I think I got back in the summertime because as soon as I got home, the first place I went was to Huntington Beach to get because we used to go there when I was in school, and I got sunburned so bad I was in bed for about 3 weeks with a big sunburn.
You wanted to have a sunburn so
Yeah.
that you can forget about frostbite.
well, it was summertime.
Yeah. Did you get the frostbite?
No, I didn't get frostbite.
Wow, you're lucky.
I take care of myself. I'm a skier, and I always know take care of your hands and feet. Or I was a skier.
And you were able to swim finally back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, good. And after you came back, what did you do?
I went to work for the Board and Cheese Company. I drove a truck for them for a number of years. Then, in between all this, I got married and had kids. But I had 5 children. One has since passed with breast cancer, but I was a Chamber of Commerce manager in Cottage Grove, Oregon. I was also a chamber manager in Eugene, Oregon. I was a city manager in Rockaway Beach, Oregon, which I was also the municipal judge there. I've done a few things. I was the industrial development director for the Port of Tillamook Bay, where we have our second home. I remarried to this lovely thing here. She's put up with me for 36 years. And where else have I been? I can't remember all the things I've done.
You have a good career.
Oh, I have. I've had an interesting life, and I've been a ski instructor. I've almost got to go to the Olympics for water polo and swimming,
Really?
but I didn't. They couldn't take us all, so they took the
Chosen few?
the chosen
Route?
few. The chosen few.
You must be good at it.
Well, I was.
Wow. My wife loves swimming.
Oh, do you? Good.
Yeah,
Stay
I
with it
do
as long
too.
as you can.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah,
You
it's
still
a
swim?
good sport. Well, my last time I went swimming was on my 90th birthday, and we were over at Bend for my birthday party, and they had a beautiful pool, and I thought I got to do this on my birthday. So I went out and did 4 or 5 laps, and that's about all I could handle.
We love ski too.
Do you? Good
Yeah.
for you. Good for
Yeah.
you.
What is your favorite ski resort?
Sun Valley.
Ah,
In fact, I have a son who has 3 restaurants in Sun Valley.
yes. So, looking back all those years, you didn't know much about Korea, but you were in one of the most historic and severe battles.
Yes.
Why did it happen to you?
It's
What do
lucky.
you-
Lucky.
How can you put it into perspective?
Lucky. No, I don't know why it happened to me. I wanted to be a Marine since I was high enough to see one, and they called and I went. I didn't know what I was getting into, but I wasn't afraid particularly. I was more curious. I loved Korea. It's a beautiful country. I loved it. I enjoyed watching the guys carry the wood on their straps on their head and all that A-frame on their back, and just marveled at how busy they are and how hard they work to survive. I'm glad it's doing as well as it is, because they deserve everything they can get as far as what the modern conveniences of life. Because we went to on our tour, went to a place way out in the country to have dinner one night, and it was an unbelievable dinner. The table was full of food, just on rotation as fast as you could eat. It reminded me of when I was there, about the farm, because most of it looked like farms all over the country. And you see these people working as hard as they work to survive that in those days. I'm glad they survived.
What would you say to the Chinese soldier if I can arrange a meeting with you now?
Oh, you better not get me.
That who had the chosen few?
You better not get me too started on that one. I've got a couple other problems that I'm having to deal with right now, anyway.
Oh, you have a PTSD?
Well, no, I got a little grudge. I'm a little prejudiced, and I had the same kind of feelings after the Second World War with Japan. But I'll get over it eventually. My daughter just married a Chinese boy. And I'm having a little trouble with that, and not because he's not a nice kid and he's coming from a good family, I'm sure, but I just have a little trouble with Chinese right now.
Right now.
But like I said, I will get over it eventually.
What do you think about the relationship between China and U.S. right now?
Tenuous,
Tenuous, very tenuous.
yes.
Yeah. China made it clear that they're going to challenge the power of the United States.
I can appreciate that. I can appreciate that. They probably will.
We'll see.
I hope it doesn't happen in my time, but I hope it does not happen in my family's time or any of our times actually, because it won't be pretty.
Yes, and now Korea is sandwiched between China and
Yep.
the United States
Yep.
again.
Yeah, again. Yep.
Because China is the biggest market in the world.
Oh yeah.
They buy a lot of Korean products.
Yep.
And if Korea is very close to the United States,
Yes.
they try to bully South Korea.
Always, almost daily, with something going on.
Hmm.
And they're trying to bully us with rockets. And you know, I hope we don't weaken.
So what happened to the chosen few reunion?
Well, we went to San Diego. They're going to have one in September of this year.
This year?
Yeah, it's in the
Washington, D.C.
huh?
It's in Washington, D.C.
It's in Washington D.C.
In September?
Yeah, it's first. No, it's the 7th to the 11th, I think. That blue card on the table, babe. There's a no, not that one. There's a blue card there for random.
So you're going to have another reunion?
Yeah, they're going to have
I thought that you had a last reunion in San Diego.
Well, that was the 50th one.
Oh,
This is the 71st one. Right?
70.
Huh?
70.
70th?
man, thank God that I asked this question. I'll be there.
Well, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to because her birthday is. I was thinking about it this morning because I could go because we had that window we could do that, but we're going to go to her birthday party or birthday trip starting the 14th, I think, 13th or 14th, and then we go immediately from that trip to meet my daughter, who's coming out here from Tennessee. The following week. So I was trying to figure out this morning if I could figure all this in. But I told him we had a party with our chosen few people last Saturday.
Picnic.
A picnic.
Picnic, yeah, you had it.
Yeah. And
How many? Yeah, go ahead.
somebody said, "Are you going?" And I said, "Well, I got the notification, and I'd really like to go, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to, just because of conflicts that I've already got out there." But the other thing is that I'm not sure I'm able to. You know, it's a long shot to Washington and back.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I fell at my daughter's wedding, and the first time I was out was at picnic this weekend, and it's about over a month. Oh yeah, I'm okay now, but I was just totally worn out the next day.
But I'll be there. How many do you think will attend that?
Well, I don't know because there's just most of our guys are dying so quickly. I mean, they're all 80 and 80 years old, and maybe older. Because I know a couple. One of the guys was in the Second World War, so he's got to be older than me, and he's still alive, but he's not very able. You know, he's just functioning about all. But I don't know how many will be there.
Okay.
You need to get back and go to the museum to see your brick
Yeah.
that's planted there.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, my kids put a brick in there for me.
What's in there?
Oh, they have a walkway that runs around through the park,
Yeah, yeah.
and alongside that walkway, there's bricks they put in. The people put stuff on them.
Your name?
Yeah, I got one up there somewhere, up
Yeah,
there
yeah.
close to where Chesty Puller is.
Yeah. I know very well. I've been there.
I haven't seen it yet. One of my kids went back there and took pictures of it. So, yeah, and I gave them to my other boy because he hadn't seen him either. So.
All right. At this point, I want to invite your wife. You are not in trouble, okay? All right. So now we have. Tell me your name, please.
Sherry Mason.
Sherry Mason, and
Sure.
how you are related to the Mr.
I've been married to him for 36 years.
36 years. Wow.
She made it. I can't believe she's done it.
And what do you know about the war that he fought for?
Well, he's told me lots about it, and he's got many, many books on it. and is constantly reading, or we've got videos to watch on it, but can't imagine it. I think it would have been really, I would have been scared to be there. I think he's very brave. He keeps saying that he'd go back again today if he could. He'd fight again today.
Wow.
Don't tell me any secrets.
Share that.
Pardon?
So
I
what
just
did you
said
see?
don't. I said don't tell him any secrets.
That's what I said. Share some of it.
He doesn't like to talk about it very much. It's hard to get him to do that. He tears up when he starts thinking about it. It was a very traumatic experience for him, I think. So he doesn't want to bring it up and talk about it a lot. But when I went to Korea, I got to see a lot of it, and it was a wonderful trip. Korean people were so appreciative. It just, every time we turned around, they were doing something different. Like when we got off the bus at the hotel, all of the hotel staff was outside and they clapped all of the Marines that were going into the hotel. And when you got up to your room, there was a banner that was across the bed that said, "My hero." And there was, they just were so appreciative. I was amazed at how appreciative they were. And they're very, very good food there.
You like Korean food?
I
Oh, yeah,
love
oh,
Korean
yeah.
food.
You like kimchi?
Yes, I do.
I don't.
I do.
Kimchi's not one of my favorites.
Oh, I like
Okay.
kimchi.
What about Don?
I do. I love kimchi.
You like kimchi?
Oh yeah. The thing I saw kimchi being made in the villages,
Yeah.
and they make it a lot differently there than they do in the restaurants.
Yeah, right.
And at first I didn't know what it was, and it didn't particularly attract me, but I got used to it, and it's very good. Every time it's served somewhere, I always have some. 'Cause we
My
don't
wife
get.
makes very good kimchi.
I'll bet she does.
And
There-
what else did
There,
you?
there were also a lot of Turkish people there, and I was not aware that Turkey had so many people that were involved in the war.
Yeah.
It's the high rises are amazing. They're so high, and they just the country has just rebuilt like crazy. I mean, it's very modern. There's lots of cars on the roads. I think one of the memorable things for me was we went to the DMZ, and we actually went into the building and saw the place where they sat, where the northern contingent and the southern contingent sat to have things discussed or negotiated or whatever. And we went over on the northern side and had our picture taken.
In fact,
Just
you can stand in that room and have one foot in one country and another foot in the other country. It's really kind of funny.
Side of Panmunjom,
Yeah.
where that you can go into the northern part of the Korean Peninsula unofficially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They also are very aware of the culture. We had several cultural nights, and we saw young men and young women dressed in their traditional clothing that were there. They're very proud people.
Yes, they are.
But do you know why they are so appreciative of American soldier?
Well, yeah, they were able to hold off the North and hold off the Chinese who decided to get involved, and America was there fighting for them just like they would have been fighting in their own homeland against somebody that was invaded. And I think that's why they're so appreciative.
One of the things I always thought about, and I know it's a fact that they've told us that before, but that it was the first time that the United States had a chance to fight a communist country.
Yeah.
And we resist saying that we got beat, because we really didn't get beat. We were surrounded and we fought our way out of that place, that reservoir area, because that was the way for survival. And I think that we showed the communists that we aren't going to be pushed too far. I mean, we will be pushed, but I think if it gets to a point where push is not there anymore, I think we'll take it on again one more time.
You know, that Korean War ended with the ceasefire on July 27 of 1953, so it was not immediate victory like World War II.
That's right.
Yeah, and it lasted still there,
And
right?
still, they never have signed a
Yeah.
peace treaty.
But because you fought there, so Koreans were given to rebuild their nation, and that's the 10th largest economy in the world. But it's not just about the economy, it's also very substantive democracy. It's belligerent civil society,
Yes.
you know? So it's a big success.
It is a big success.
And that's why Koreans really, really appreciate. If they will fail to modernize their country, then I don't think it will be the same as...
Oh, I'm sure that's true.
Right?
I'm sure that's true. Absolutely.
So I think it's a both mutual thing.
Yeah.
U.S. and Korea was good partner together, and they proved that they could rebuild nation. That's why they are so appreciative, because
Yeah.
they were able to rebuild their nation. They are proud of themselves, and
They
so
should be. They should be.
naturally, it's an extension of appreciation about who they are to the people who fought for them.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Yeah,
I
I am
appreciate
right.
Well, you are right. You are right. And I think I don't tell people that much because I'm a little bit humbler than that. I don't want them to think that we're the greatest thing ever since sliced bread, but it's true. And I appreciate the fact that we had the opportunity, personally, to go do that and defend our morals and society in a war like that, that they were trying to prove that they were better, and we won, I think. Because I don't think they're going to screw with us too much. They'll push, but I don't think they're going to push too hard.
And as Sherry mentioned, that there was such a beautiful thing came out of your service, right? South Korea.
Oh, South Korea is beautiful, yes.
Why do we call it still as forgotten war? Why?
Well,
Sherry, can you answer that
Oh,
question?
maybe she
I
can.
think that they never, for one thing, they never called it a war. They called it a
Peace action.
occupation or a peace action or something.
Conflict or
a
police
conflict,
actions?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I also think there wasn't as much. They had just gone through World War I or
True.
World War II,
True.
and everybody was tired of war, and they didn't want to hear any more about war. And I think that it just when they finally came home, there was no acknowledgement, no ticker tape parades or honors or any of that kind of thing. So I think that's why.
Very good point. Very good point. And that's why my foundation is doing this. Preserve your memory, first of all, right? And we have more than 1,500 of those. And it's available in the website for any time from anywhere.
Sure.
And then we make curricular resources for the teachers so that they can look it up and use it. Not book, not about the scholarly book on the Korean War, but from the interview from Don Mason, somewhere in Portland, Oregon. They're going to watch this interview. They're going to use in the classroom, and
I think it's wonderful that you're doing it. I never learned about the Korean War either, and I was in kindergarten when he went off to fight the war, and went through, the whole my whole, not only my high school years but my college years. I never heard anything about the Korean War. So until I met this guy. Well, the other thing he hasn't talked too much about is the cold, and the cold was horrendous. And I went to the museum, and they have one room in the museum that is kept at very, very cold. And I couldn't believe how cold that was. And, they couldn't get their guns to work because they were so cold. And that's where they started using Tootsie Rolls to fix the guns,
plug
to
'em
plug
up.
the guns. But he still doesn't like the cold, even though he's a skier.
I'm dressed for it.
Yeah.
So this is a very nice conversation. I am American citizen, but born in South Korea.
Good.
But I want to do this so that future generations can learn from you. And the Korean War is still very, very important in the place of world history because U.S. and China colliding again, exactly along the same line.
Yeah.
South China Sea.
South China
That's
Sea.
the Atchison line.
Yep.
Dean Acheson.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
In 1950, the State Secretary Dean Acheson declared that U.S. defensive perimeter is not going to include the Korean Peninsula, which was a signal for Kim Il-sung and Stalin
To take
and
up,
Mao,
to start.
so that they began to attack South
Yeah. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So this is very important in world history, at least to me and for you.
Well, one of the offsprings of this thing is there was an organization in Eugene, Oregon, called Holt Adoption, which started out with adopting children out of Korea. And little known to me, my son applied for a job there and works for them now, and does that. He's kind of in charge of gathering money to make it work, but he enjoys his new job. I mean, he's been there for a couple, 3, 4 years, but he is a strong advocate for the kids out of Korea and trying to get them housed and taken care of here. I have a close friend who's a Korean attorney who did some work for me a couple, 3, 4 years ago, and he was a Korean adoptee as well and has a family here.
And this organization that Don belongs to is trying to start a legacy organization and have the kids of all of the members join it so that they can carry it on. So hopefully that will happen.
You let me know. You can use we have a very short kind of video that we made out of all this interview, more than 1,500. We can provide all the materials about Korea. We published more than 7 publications on Korea and the Korean War for teachers. So you let me know. I'll be right there to help you and your organization, your mission, okay?
Yeah, our mission is a difficult one because most of the parents who are male have difficulty talking to their children about what they did in Korea. And it's difficult for them to connect with something that they don't know an awful lot about either. And
we can be helpful.
I know you can. I can see that, and that would be helpful. Because I know my kids, my daughter said the other day, we were talking, and she said, I got the invitation to come to your picnic. I said, well, good. You're more than welcome. And that was where it stopped, because she didn't come to the picnic.
She was going to a baby shower for her.
I know, but
Her cousin.
They all have the similar thing. My daughter in Tennessee is probably the most religious follower of what her dad did, but she too has a problem with connecting then and now. Which I think
We
is
have a daughter, well, she's our, she married our son, so I mean our grandson, so I don't know what you call her, what that relationship is. But she was just so appreciative. At Don's 90th birthday, they had an honor guard come, and they brought out the cake, and she was so appreciative and wanted to know more about the Korean War, and so Don's been sending her books about the Korean War.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Welcome.